Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of people around the world who are making said world a better place locally, globally, and digitally. Our club is part of Rotary International, over 1 million people in 36,000 clubs around the planet. They are dedicated to the idea of service above self, that joy and meaning that comes from making the world better for others. We think that's a really cool thing. Our club has a special focus on innovation, education, and entrepreneurship. We also think that you got to think in clear and creative ways to be able to get into that space of doing this kind of service well, sustainably, effectively. And to that end, I have asked Mitch Weisburgh, who is a guy I have known from the educational technology space, who does a lot more than just educational technology, to talk to us about some things that he has developed. He's written a book on what is called mind shifting, and he's going to tell us about that, tell us about the work he does. And his presentation is a little longer than we usually get, but all good. So don't worry if you're kind of hanging out there. We have definitely got plenty of Q&A on the way. And Mitch, we are happy to have you join us. Welcome to the Rotary E Club of Silicon Valley.
Okay. So my name is Mitch Weisburgh. I'm going to be talking about mind shifting and changing the way 5 million people think. I want to thank the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and especially I want to talk Rush and Hurley for inviting me here. And I think that what we're going to be talking about is going to mesh really well with the vision and mission of Rotary. I just want to start off and, those of us who are here, we're probably living really good lives. I mean, we're living in a time with incredible, technology, with enormous wealth. We're probably all living well. We're living longer than any time in human history. And so in many senses, things are really good. But we're also facing these global issues, countrywide issues, and life issues. I mean, if you just look at youth, we have the highest rates of teen suicide, teen drug overdose, and teen depression that we've ever had. We have income inequality. We have issues with our healthcare. We have all these things that we face on a global country and life basis. And the result is that instead of solving these, we've been devolving into a polarity and divisiveness. And, our leaders, we look at them with the solutions that they're proposing, and very often it's just a quick fix. So we've been, disappointed and angry and upset about, all these things that are happening. And so the question is, what do we do about that? So my premise is that we need to learn how to use our brains better. The brain may be the most complex system in the universe. It's got 100 billion neurons. It's got 100 trillion connections. It's got the ability to make sense of situations on minimal information and forge connections with other people, which has made us the alpha organism on the planet. But it's also our worst obstacle. We make decisions most often based on survival instincts instead of tapping into our resourcefulness, resilience, empathy, and critical thinking. In fact, when we are in survival mode, our bodies shut down our abilities to be resourceful, resilient, empathetic, and exploratory. So we get stuck in these fight flight mindsets and we get angry because no solutions ever seem to change anything. And we conflict. I mean, just look at this past election. You've got, half the country who's saying, look at these idiots who just elected somebody who lies, who cheats on his wife, who steals, um, who's always shilling something, who you can't trust. And then you got another half the population who basically is saying, these elites have run our political and our economic system for so long, and they've shipped our jobs overseas. We can't send our kids to good schools. Everything is getting worse and worse. And so we're going to elect the one person who says he's going to do something about it. And, he may not be able to do everything that he says he's going to do, but he's going to get them really angry. And that may be good enough. And how do we progress when we have these two sides that are always fighting? So there are techniques that we can learn that then allow us to be exploratory, empathetic, innovative, and aligned to our higher goals and perseverant. These come from cognitive science, psychology, neuroscience, economics, sense making, um, learning science, coaching, strategy, and a wide variety of other fields. But no one, to my knowledge, has tried to integrate all these fields into one treatise on how to be effective. If we understood how to get out of fight flight mindsets, if we could innovate together to craft solutions that lead to sustainable change, and if we knew how to turn conflicts into collaborative opportunities, we could accomplish anything. We could live happier and more productive lives. We could work towards solutions on violence, education, productivity, climate change, pollution, health and wellness, and so on. And we could give our young people hope. So, what if 5 million people out of, say, the 8.5 billion people on the planet, what if 5 million people learned how to harness the resourcefulness and resilience of their own brains? And that's really what I'm all about. I've written my first book on this, and I teach 3 courses. And let me tell you how it works, how people can learn these skills. I'm going to, I'm going to walk you through how people can learn to be resourceful and resilient and learn how to work together. Now, our journey is going to take us from the lower left-hand corner where we're feeling burned out, frustrated, and stressed. And then we're going to follow this curve, up to the top right, where mind shifting practitioners are happy, resourceful, taking on challenges and motivating others. Now, I work primarily myself with educators. So educators are looking at this and saying, I've got a system that's disrespectful, that just gives me more and more detail and more work. The students and the parents are so difficult to deal with. And then taking them through these 3 categories, we end up at the point where they're saying, you know something, I'm looking at the kids, they're motivated, I'm happy, I'm resourceful, my students are so much better at self-regulating. And so that's the journey that we're going to be taking. And we go through that by looking at 3 categories of the way we function. So we start understanding the brain and learning how to move from stressed or disengaged to be able to tap into resourcefulness and resilience at will. This applies to broad issues like gun control or climate change, pollution, reproductive rights. And it also applies to individual behaviors, such as engaging in risky behaviors, or a lack of perseverance, or flying off the handle, or healthy versus unhealthy eating habits. You know, or being able to, or when we say to ourselves, I don't know how to do this, or I know I'm right and this person is wrong, or why can't this person see that they're wrong when it's so obvious? So you learn these skills in 3 phases. First, you learn how to be aware of when you're stuck. You learn what it looks like, what it feels like, and what the effects are. And then you learn how to interrupt and quiet those limbic survival fight flight reactions. And then third, you learn how to tap into the 5 superpowers that we all possess and which enable us to explore, collaborate, innovate, define what's truly important to us, and then execute. People who go through the process of learning how to control their brains report back that it's life-changing. And a quote from somebody who took the Mastering Your Resourceful Brain class was that, I just want to say thank you for this course. I'm laughing at myself because I'm realizing in such a short amount of time how much I've been in my own way. Still, even once we master our brain, we have to look at how we handle situations. We get into situations where we just feel that there are so many challenges and nothing seems to work. And the brain um, starts off with a feeling of frustration. And where we want to end up is that when we're attacking these challenges, we're operating from a sense of ease and flow. And again, these are broad issues such as COVID or healthcare or immigration or inequality or wars, as well as personal issues such as crises at work, or determining who's responsible for doing something at home, or deciding what to exercise, or what restaurants to go to, or how to get your kids to self-direct so that their actions align with their long-term goals. How do we move people from angst and frustration into actions that are coming from ease and flow? So, in this category on situations, we learn to recognize and implement solutions flexibly. Now, our brains naturally look at situations as if there's one answer, and that answer is correct, and anything else is wrong. And if we just do that, it's going to work. Now, there are situations like that, and we call them simple situations. And we learn how to recognize when a situation is simple, when we just need a quick solution, and then how to move on. And then we also learned that there's many more situations that are complicated. And in these situations, maybe we need more time, or we need more data or analysis, or we need expertise. When there's more than one, in many of these cases, there's more than one solutions that could work. But we have to understand that, start looking at the trade-offs between those different solutions. And this means that getting everyone in the same boat ends up being more important than the specific boat that we choose. Problem solving in complicated situations is very different from problem solving in simple ones. And then there are complex situations. Now, in English, we use the terms complex and complicated interchangeably. But in system science, they're very different, and you go about solving them using very different methods. A complex system is one where no one knows what's going to work. In a complex system or a complex situation, um, whatever ends up working is going to evolve over time. And in a complex system, one small action might destabilize the entire system. In complex systems, you have to be prepared that, whatever you try, since nobody knows what's going to work, whatever you try isn't going to work the first time. You need to build in procedures where you can act, observe, learn, and then act again. You iterate. You learn how to move forward and move forward together, even when things don't go as planned, and even when there are obstacles and unforeseen consequences of our actions. Maybe we could learn to move towards workable solutions to immigration, forest fires, extreme weather, and even preparing for jobs that don't exist yet if we have these skills. And a quote from somebody who took the Flexible Mindsets for Long-Term Success course was, I learned that it's empowering to understand and use these skills, and that it makes a big difference to not be defeated or discouraged when the first thing we try fails. It's a weight off my shoulders. And people who learn these skills also say, these techniques are life-changing, and it takes them from being frustrated to motivated. And yet, even when we know how to control our own mind, and even when we learn how to be flexible in the face of different types of challenges, we still find people disagree with us, they oppose us, or they get in our way. You probably know people who disagree with you about issues like reproductive rights or gun safety or immigration and climate change, or with, daily and personal issues such as we all have words or actions that trigger us, or we take actions or we say things that trigger other people, like members of our family. We have disagreements with coworkers, with bosses and subordinates. We have trouble getting kids to study or to help out. And if you're a kid, we just want to get our parents and our adults off of our backs. Data, studies, and real life experiences show you can't make any of these better in the long term by arguing, by using facts or logic, and even rewards and punishments only have limited short-term benefits. So how do we move from adversarial relationships to collaborations that generate progress? Well, first, by understanding the different styles of handling conflicts and when they're appropriate and when they're counterproductive. Do we try to collaborate? When is it best to just give in or accommodate the other people? When is it best to press for our solution? And then second, to learn the communications techniques that break down barriers and connect us, because it's that connection, even when we disagree, that's the basis of the power of groups. And then third, by acquiring the communication skill to innovate and co-create with others, even when there are differences. Again, people report that learning these techniques is life-changing, that people that they thought were obstructionists or difficult suddenly become allies and helpers. And a quote from somebody who took the conflict and collaboration course was, this was life-changing. I have so many new methods of dealing with conflict and using them in my daily practice. I will listen more carefully without interrupting, and I will try to understand others' point of view and feelings. So, you know, our goal should be to get some critical mass of people to learn how to control their brains, to stay in resourceful, resilient, and collaborative mode, despite obstacles, despite opposition, and despite anticipated results. So I I'm not sure completely how to do that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm talking to you all, because I need help. How are we going to reach 5 million people? I can't do it alone. Currently, what I'm doing is I'm writing books. I've written the first book on the brain part of it, Mindshifting. I teach courses. There's 3 courses, and I can train people how to teach those courses on those 3 different categories. And I'm building a community of people who understand mind shifting so that they can share best practices and they can help each other on challenges. So I'd love some help. And, maybe some of you could teach mind shifting to communities or educators or kids. Maybe you could coach others. Maybe you could introduce me to communities, organizations, and districts, and I could talk to them. Maybe you're in a book club and you could lead a discussion on the book. Or maybe you could buy the book and convince your local library or bookstore to stock it. Maybe you could write your own book, a better one than I'm capable of writing. If you need a speaker for a conference or a meeting, I'm happy to talk. So here's my contact information and a mind shifting landing page for more information on the right. It's a QR code and the URL. And let's live the Rotary mission. Let's make a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. All right. Well, let's do this. I'm going to have you do what you just did. And I want to introduce the people who are on the recording so that we can then get to our questions and whatever answers you might be willing to provide. So, from our club here in California, me, Rushton, down in Southern California on Catalina Island is Ernie. Wave at the camera, Ernie. Good man. In Texas is Rory. Rory, good to see you. Back here in California again, and here in the Bay Area is Shags, Shagrin. And joining us from New York is Mitch Weisburgh. All right, so Mitch, I want to start this by looking at how you think about communication. I think of mind shifting in a sense as another way of describing how communication works. And so, I'm sure there are a lot of good examples related to how someone can say, see, that's something I can use right away, right? So I
Right.
often will tell people, hey, if somebody says something that has you like frustrated, go with a question instead of a statement, right?
Hmm.
Do you mean this, right? As opposed to, I can't believe blah blah blah. So I'm guessing you've got a whole raft of these things, and curious to know if there are certain techniques that you would suggest for people who might be in any given situation.
Sure. So there are certain techniques in each of those 3 categories. And there's techniques in the brain, and the brain is mostly about how do you do this for yourself. So when something triggers you, how do you get out of that fight flight? And a little bit of when you see that somebody else is in it, what are a few things that you can do? And then in the situations one is how do you pull people together? But the real crux of the communications part of it is in that third course on conflict and collaboration. And part of that is understanding the styles and the way people react. Part of it is understanding how our first inclinations, which is to say it louder or to punish people or to try to convince people with facts, why that doesn't work because of the effect that it has on the brain. And part of it is specific techniques. And I think the 2 biggest I use a lot of different, but I think 2 of the biggest areas that I use is mutual interviewing, which is used by a lot of social workers initially, but it's penetrating more and more into the way we speak, and nonviolent communication, And when you combine those, because it's interesting, people are, like, oh, nonviolent communication is my Bible, mutual interviewing is my Bible, but when you combine them, it's even more powerful.
So in doing that, you end up with a set of shared experiences that become, in effect, stories that can help people out, right?
Hmm.
And one of the ways that you work with that is through a blog that you have at
Right.
mindshiftingeducators.org, right? Uh, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the post that you put up yesterday. I took a look at your blog and was completely charmed by a paella post, which is really about the communication you were having with a was it a 2-year-old or something
Two-year-old.
like that?
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's so to me, that's really an example of mindfulness. If you can imagine going to a restaurant where the meal is taking 2 hours and you're sitting next to a 2-year-old, and that could be an absolute disaster. Okay. On the other hand, 2-year-olds can be incredible fun. And basically, in this experience, my focus was on seeing how long I could get this young girl to laugh and be happy and to try different things. And so, we started off and the napkins had been wrapped in a ribbon. And so I took the ribbon and I wrapped it around my finger and I took one end of it and she held it and she pulled it and the whole ribbon came off my finger and she just laughed and laughed and then she did it again. She did it like 5 or 6 times. And then she held out her finger. So I wrapped that. And then I took the end and she figured out how to move her hand back. And then she laughed again. And we did that about 5 or 6 times. And then she tried another finger and then another finger. So she used, all 5 fingers on one hand, all 5 fingers on the other hand. And then she went back and did the 5 fingers again. And all of this took about 45 minutes until the food came. And then, we ate, but we spent as much time playing with our food as we did eating the food. And it was just like, it was just fun.
Well, Shags can attest. He notes that his younger grandson is 2 and a bit.
Yep.
By the way, I should also note that Shags is our club's identified paella master.
Oh, thanks. I just took the thing down. I'll put it back up.
Ah, my bad, my
Ah,
I
bad.
there
have
it
a
is.
comment, if I might, not really a question.
Please go ahead.
I work in money coaching
Mhm.
and training others that to be money coaches. And a lot of times people come to us totally stressed. And and as you said, just in their brain in the wrong part. And how do you get them focused? And just want to share we have a grounding process that tries to take them to a grounded space. And it's very simple. It's what do you fear will happen? Or what is the worst that could happen? And let them express that. And what is likely to happen? And then they're bringing it to a little closer reality. And then looking forward is what do you hope will happen? Or what do you desire to happen? And so,
I'll just say that's brilliant. I mean, the whole thing is that when somebody is in, what I call the limbic part of the brain or the survival part of the brain, that part of the brain shuts down their ability to think, and it's all fear-based. And if you have, when you use techniques to quiet that part of the brain first, and then have the person start being curious and playful, then you can start getting them to critically think, be creative, and to move towards their goals. That's exactly, you don't need the book, you don't need the course.
I'm looking at the course. I might enroll. It looks fascinating.
Oh,
I remember Bessel van der Kolk doing some studies on trauma and children in Oakland, and it extends to almost anybody. And if they've gone through stress and have had PSTD,
hmm.
studies have shown that it really has changed the structure of the brain so that normally when somebody's in a situation where it requires you to focus, you stop and you say, pay attention, something's going on. And
Right.
there's that inhibitory wave, and then there's a learning wave. Now, what did you learn from that situation? In those that have been stressed over and over, they don't generate a good inhibitory wave, nor
Right.
a learning wave. So it's not that they're stuck in the past. They
Mhm.
don't have a way of connecting with the present.
Right, right. There's
So
no
I think
word.
that's where
They're
you're
worried about the
going.
past. They're afraid of what happened in the past, and they're afraid of what might happen
What
in the
happened?
future, and they're just locked. And
They're stuck.
one of the things is you want to accept that you want to get that we call it, accepting or convert. Those are really the only two things you can do is to take the thing and say, something, it really wasn't that important. Or to figure out how to convert it into a gift. A gift could be something that you learned, or a gift could be something that you're going to do for yourself that's going to make yourself feel good. So, accept or convert so that it's what there's a Dr. Stutz calls radical acceptance, and he wasn't the only one who uses the term, but that's who I got it from is radical acceptance.
Nice. In thinking about what Shags describes, the chance to relax, and looking at the story you tell about the family dinner, there's a moment of joy.
Hmm.
Those are related ideas, of course, and I think that to the degree that you are helping people find an opportunity to experience joy, they
Right.
are improving all manner of aspects of their lives.
Yes. One of the stories I think that's in the book, but I'm not, there's so many different stories, is I was flying. Um, and I was supposed, they put me on a plane out of this tiny airport. Our family, because we had four of us, they put us on a plane where we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, catch a puddle jumper, get to this airport, and then wait 6 hours for the next plane. And there were eight other pedal jumpers we could have taken, but they insisted that we take the one that was at 5:30 in the morning. And I tried to get on earlier flights back out to Bangkok, and like nobody was cooperating. And you can just picture, getting angrier and angrier, right? And then it was like, something? I got 6 hours in a place I've never been before. What's something that I could do that would be fun? And it was like, we could take a walking tour of the city. And so we found a guide in the airport who took us on a walking tour of the city. And it was, we had breakfast with him. He gave us the history of the city. We get back to the airport. The lines are 2 hours long. And he says, you don't have to wait in 2 hours. You just follow me. And he knew all the handlers. And he just said, hey, these are friends of mine. Just let them in. They shouldn't have to wait. It was just like such a wonderful experience. And you can so often turn these disasters into those wonderful experiences if you can just relax so that you can tap into your playfulness, your creativity, and your resourcefulness.
I love that. We're going to wind down, and at the very end, we do what we always do, which is hand it back to our speaker for the final word. So Mitch, we're teeing you up for kind of that last thought. But for everybody who has joined us, thank you. We hope that the ideas that you encounter in these videos, in these podcasts, are ones that allow you to find new possibilities for yourselves, where you begin to say, "Hey, I can help with that. I can help make a difference in the lives of others," and that you can find a lot of joy in that kind of space. Rotary.org is a great place to go to learn more about our service organization. There are many others that are very good as well. If you want to know more about our specific club, you can go to rotary.cool. We're real proud of that, as a matter of fact.
Hmm.
SiliconValleyRotary.com for the people who like to type longer.
Hmm.
So, as we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. Mitch, what would you like people to have clearly in mind as they finish the recording?
I think that the big thing is that we come up with our brains are natural storytellers and we get locked into these stories. And usually because our brains were designed for survival, the stories are things that allowed us to survive. So they're looking for danger. They're looking to avoid danger. And in our modern society, so many of the things that feel uncomfortable aren't really dangerous. And so when we learn the techniques on how to recognize that and quiet that limbic old parts of the brain and then tap into our own creativity and resourcefulness, we're happier, we're better at collaborating with others, and we're more effective. And whether you learn it from my book or obviously Rory, I think was has learned many of the techniques on. I'm sure all of you have learned many of the techniques on your own, but I think you'll find new techniques if you buy the book and then the next books as they come out, or take the courses.
Good stuff. Well, Mitch, thank you. And everyone, thank you. We will see you next week.